this is where it leaves them in the Premier League table. Frank Lampard's side down there in 9th, 26 points. It is quite congested there, just 3 points off the top 4, 7 points off Liverpool in top spot, but just 1 win in 7 in all competitions for the Blues. Now, Brighty, when we talk about that run of form, when we look at the league table, how worried are you for Chelsea and for Frank Lampard in particular?
I think it's hard to judge them against that City side who played so brilliantly, but I think when you look at how the Villa, there seems to, when they played against Villa and Arsenal especially, I was very surprised with the Arsenal. I was doing that game here and I was expecting to really put Arsenal under pressure right from the off. You know, they had young players playing, shaky at the back. Everything was very much in the favour. If Chelsea just had the right attitude and intensity, they could have caused Arsenal a problem, and they didn't show anything. That's the biggest worry, because when you look at Chelsea's and Frank Lampard and the way Frank Lampard played for Chelsea and what he was about, for his players to come out and not have that energy and fight was a worry. I thought the organisation against Manchester City, again, they weren't particularly pressing. They were quite high. I didn't know what the game plan was there. And I think after 15 minutes, you saw City take them to pieces. And it just seemed like they themselves, Chelsea have got a lot of players that are not on form. They're not playing very well. Even seeing N'Golo Kante it's just all over the place. It just seems like there's a lot of confusion there at the moment. You've got top players not scoring, you know, players playing maybe not in the right positions. It just seems at the moment like there's such a mishmash of everything that you can't see where he's going to put that right to get it stable again. And it just seems like at the moment that Chelsea are there for the taking.
Chris, is that how you feel when you're watching Chelsea at the moment? A bit confused? That was the overriding message from what Brighty said.
That's the right word, I would say. After an encouraging season last season, you know, qualify for the Champions League, we say they are on the right track with all the new signing that came and starting the season quite well, to be fair. And suddenly, it's difficult to explain that deep of form, but it's better that it happens now, because then you have more time to get it right. And they're still in touch with the top 4. They're just 3 points away. So I think if it's a moment to react, is now they need a reaction now and to make something happen.
So, go ahead, Brighty. I can see you big exhale there.
Only because the one thing you want to see from a team, even if you're not playing well, they've got players that are very, very good players. But when you're not playing well, you don't want to be looking at a team that's not fighting, a team that's not getting close enough, a team that doesn't seem like they've got the energy at the moment to get close enough to not only beat an Arsenal team and a Villa team that we know that's going to cause the problems that Villa are going to cause you, but then a Manchester City team that you know you can't afford to give them that much time and space, and they didn't do either of them, and they didn't seem to have the energy for it. Like I say, Kante looked like he was confused with where he was meant to be. You know, we didn't know what Timo Werner was going on. Christian Pulisic, we're not getting the form from the players, what you're meant to get. So I don't know how they're going to turn it round like that, Kel, so quickly. Something massive's got to happen, something in the dressing room, something's got to happen, Sal. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, because when you're looking at those results, and they had the West Ham result in the middle, 3-0 at home, you would normally think, well, that's it. That could be the result that turns things around.
Yeah, but when I watched that game, Sam, when you watch that game, Sam, it wasn't that kind of game. It weren't a 3-0 game.
Sometimes, yeah, no, they're true. But I suppose sometimes, though, you just need the win. Like, so from Timo Werner's point of view, he's not been getting the goals, but he's hit the woodwork like 5 times, I think, this season, which is like, it's probably no consolation for a top striker, but you could probably look, it's fine, like, things will start turning. And you thought maybe after just getting a win, no matter how, it might have been that turning point, but it's not. So I'm not sure where this kind of underperformance is coming from. Because you look at that squad, I love it. Like both the great fullbacks, Thiago Silva centre back, Zuma's fine, especially with Thiago Silva. Kante midfield, Mount, Kovacic, absolutely fine. The front 3, Pulisic, Werner, and Ziyech, and then you've got Abraham to come in. You've got Giroud as well. You've got Hudson-Odoi. These are like, we could be talking about these in the Premier League title race, but we're not. Well, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure why.
What do you think, if I can ask a question, like, do you think the problem is mentally? Do you think they don't get the psychological boost they need?
You know,
How many times have you excelled during this conversation?
Because,
We haven't
like,
even started talking about Arsenal
I
yet.
know, but it's a good question because, like Sam said, that you go through their team and their squad, and you think to yourself, they should be performing a lot better.
Well, let's take a look at the pressure that Frank Lampard does appear to be under. When we look at Chelsea teams, these are the managers under Roman Abramovich, and it doesn't look good for Lampard, does it? Because points per game, 1.67, he's bottom of that list.
You know something I was saying the other day and about Frank's appointment and Frank being there and Frank going there at a time where, you know, there was no transfer, you know, the transfer embargo was in. It was a tough job for any top manager to take because they wouldn't have had the monies or the resources to bring players in. And so you're thinking that at the time Frank was the best appointment because the fans would be happy with that. Yes, Frank was inexperienced at that level, but like you're feeling like, okay, well, let's see what he does. And, you know, we've got to a junction now where it's not working out. We're seeing he's bottom of a list there in respect of points per game. And people are talking about him in a way where he's under pressure to keep his job. Now, you think to yourself, if they are not going to back him with the money they've just spent, the players they've got to try and settle in for him to then go on and do what they hoped he would have done when they appointed him, it just seems like a massive waste of time getting him in the first place. Because if you're not going to give him the time now to try and build on bringing those young players in, build on bringing those signings in, and now he's under pressure to lose his job, it just seems like a massive waste of time. And if you look at Chelsea and what they're capable of doing to managers, then you have to fear for Frank in this time.
Do we also have to have a bit of perspective? We talked about it with Liverpool, Sam, and the fact that they are still top of the league. They are only a few points off the top four. It is incredibly congested in that top of the table.
Yeah, and again, I'm waiting. Like I say, it's the snakes and ladders element of this season. Something can click. I don't know what it'll be, but something can click. And with a team like that, you've got to think, I could come back in a month and we'll be talking about Chelsea. Certainly, flying or whatever. But the thing is, talking about Lampard there, when we showed that, well, we saw that little highlights package coming back, and just like Lampard's like ghostly voice coming back, and he was like, "It's up to the players now. They've got to sort it out." And it's like, can you put the pressure on the players like that as a manager?
You know, the thing is that what that says to me, Chris, is he's obviously had a couple of blasts in the dressing room about their performances, and he's told them in no uncertain terms that they're not performing to the levels. But to see him say out loud in the public is something that I say the players will be probably feel a little bit aggrieved by that, because you don't mind being slaughtered in the dressing room, but if you're saying, well, it's up to the players, that means to me, Frank has said to them, you need to get us out of this, because, you know what I mean, the work, what we're doing, you should be doing better, you're not performing as well as you should be. Now, it's up to the players to react to that and start to perform, but what you've seen in recent games, it doesn't seem like they're very close to getting that kind of performance out of them.
You talked about an identity earlier, Chris, when we were talking about Manchester United. Do you see an identity with Chelsea?
I could see an identity in when they're playing well. You can see what Frank Lampard's trying to do with the team. I find it just a little bit difficult to understand why now something is not clicking. So because it was clear to me. So I wonder if the problem is beyond the pitch. That's a question that people start to wonder. Is it like a relationship problem or something? I don't want to put this out like that's what it is, but that's what people will start to wonder. Is it a dressing room issue? Is it a relationship issue with the players or something?
Do you think there's a lack of leadership? That's something that a few people have suggested when analysing Chelsea.
Leadership, I don't know.
On the pitch, I mean, not.
You have players I would expect to lead, like Thiago Silva. I mean, he's been a leader most of his life, and he's been brought for that. A player like Giroud, who is a bit older to lead the team, and of course you have also the kind of leader like N'Golo Kanté on the pitch, not really vocal, but by his actions. That's why, like you said before, when he start not playing well, you start to worry. And that's where we are today.
I think you look, Chris, at Thiago Silva, who's come in, and yes, like Chris says, and rightly says, he's been a leader for most of his life. But then you do have to look elsewhere, and you're still looking at a lot of inexperienced players, apart from, yes, N'Golo Kanté, who is not very vocal in the way he leads, but he leads by example in the way he goes around the football pitch. But recently, we're seeing him being pulled out all over the place, and they seem, like I say, you know what I mean, very disjointed. Then you've got 3 guys up front. Ziyech has just come back with Werner, and you know, when Kai Havertz is in there, so you've got 3 players who are not quite used to it yet. They haven't hit the ground running like we've seen Bruno Fernandes, and what constantly comes back to attack Frank is the amount of money he's spent, and it's not quite working out yet. So this is why my problem with Chelsea and Frank is they've got to give him time to get that right. They have to, otherwise what you're doing to a legend of your club, his legacy is going to be harmed by what you're doing to him now. Because if I'm going to look at it right now, Kels, it almost seems like it's like he's the patsy. Let's just take him to appease people for a while. If it doesn't work out, we'll get rid of him here and bring this guy in and move back to what we do, win a trophy every 2 years, instead of building on what Frank is trying to do there with youngsters and new players.
When we look at the team, you mentioned N'Golo Kante there, Chris, and I know that's something that's been highlighted a couple of times. Why is that such a worry when he's not playing well? And how much do you think that's highlighting to us just how important he is to everything Chelsea have done? Because when he's not playing well, it's maybe having a knock-on effect, or it represents the way the team are playing.
Yes, because in some team, you every time have players that are leader by example. They don't need to talk. By the way they play, you follow their lead. And it's been a little while now that N'Golo Kante have been not performing the way we know he is. Also by knowing his character. He's very humble and very honest on the pitch. And the fact that he's not performing and he's so disoriented, I want to say, is a little bit worrying.
It does maybe go back to the spine.